用声音
碰撞世界，
生动活泼。
那在前面两个 panel 中，我们已经看到 AI 已经渗透到了我们生活的方方面面，有积极的影响，也有一些需要现在克服的挑战。那下面这个部分，我们就想要跳出现在，然后已经成为现实的部分，我们站在一个更高的维度上面来开脑洞，聊一聊我们遥远的未来，我们和 AI 的关系将会是怎么样的，我们与虚拟角色之间的互动会有什么样的新的可能性，以及 AI 将如何塑造我们的未来。那我自己是一个科幻迷啊，所以对这一个 panel 来说，我特别的期待。那这个 panel 的主持人是贝言咨询公司的合伙人 Larry Zhu， 他同时也是在清华苏世民学院担任客座教授。另外的嘉宾还有纽约视觉与艺术学院的教授 Michael Gold， 还有来自我们的合作方斑马实验室 Zebra Lab 的创始人李代。他们公司也正在利用 AI 打造虚拟偶像。还有就是知名的科幻作家陈秋帆，他透露自己也正在创作一本关于 AI 和人类之间非常复杂关系的一本小说，以及他还透露在今年年底会有一个在杭州的沉浸式互动的一个戏剧，所以我自己也非常期待了。那在节目正式开始之前，我还是要感谢一下我们的合作伙伴，那这一次的联合发起方 Zebra Lab、Ultra Hong Kong， 然后还有我们的支持单位香港投资推广署，然后包括我们的赞助方图拉斯以及鹰牌花旗参。好了，那下面就是我们今天的节目。
All right, let me introduce the moderator for panel 3, Larry Zhu. So Larry is the partner at Bain & Company, and then he is also guest professor at Tsinghua Susby Institute. All right, Larry, please take a seat. And then this panel, as a science fiction fan myself, this is especially exciting for me. So we just talk about a lot about present, maybe in 5 years. This is probably going to be next 50 to 100 years of discussion. So I'm super excited about this.
All right. Thank you, guys. Yeah, let me introduce a few our panelists to you. So Stanley and Michael, and our beautiful host, Scarlett, you already met. But for Stanley and for Michael, do you mind to give the audience maybe 30 seconds each, very quickly on yourself? Okay? Maybe Michael.
Yeah.
Come on stage first. Yes.
So I'm Michael Gold. I am a professor at the School of Visual Arts in New York. I teach tech direction and AI pipelines to 3D artists. So I'll be showing you today a bit of what I teach them. And I kind of became a professor almost by accident. I was an entrepreneur in residence. I've been an entrepreneur my whole career. So I was an EIR at NYU and spinning out AR and VR startups from a research lab there run by a very well-known computer graphics professor. And that's how I met Ryan. Ryan came to the lab as a VC back in 2016, 2017, and he had gone to NYU. So we became friends then. Yeah, still doing AR and AI, looking very closely right now at AI and 3D startups for a blockchain fund that my friend started. So if you're working on things like that, definitely come talk to me. Thanks.
Great. Stanley, please.
Okay, I'm Stanley Qiufan Chen. I'm a science fiction writer. So I'm the author of Waste Time, my debut novel, and co-author with Dr. Kai-Fu Li on the book AI 2041, 10 Visions for Our Future. So now I'm teaching Chinese science fiction study, AIGC, in Hong Kong Poly U. I know Scarlett for how many years?
Don't tell them.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Quite a few years, but back in the day when I was doing VR for a tech startup company in Beijing, so we discussed a lot about science fiction, AR,
like 10 years ago.
VR. Yeah, almost, yeah, but yeah, so glad to be here. Thank you.
Great. And Scarlett, do you have anything to add for yourself, especially qualifying the panelist role?
Well, I think everybody knows about me already. If you have time, please, if you have Douyin, please check out our 2 AI agents. One is Lisa404 and one is Biu Biu. Then you can know what I have been busy with, not only just with the parties and the festivals.
Thank you. A few more words on myself, right? My daily job is a boring consultant. But as my part-time capacity, I'm a researcher and a teacher for art and history. And I do have quite a big variety of art categories, especially in the medieval art and also digital arts. right? Yeah, so talk to me if you are kind of keen, to these areas. Okay, guys, so you are the people sitting between the audience and the dinner, right? So we all have a very high expectation on you guys, right? I learned a lot from the previous panelists, right? But to be honest, right, what I learned from them is really about what they are doing right now, present tense. But I want to hear from you guys. It's more about the future tense, right? How does the future look like? What kind of new issues, new challenges will be there, right? And what kind of things we should do or do not do going forward. And that will be the content for the next 1 hour. First question. I love the question the organizer put on the screen. When will humans fall in love with AI? Very interesting question because it's already asserting you will fall in love with AI. It's just a matter of when. But I do want to hear, are you agree with that? Do you have some different voice, right? Do you think whether, let's answer the whether question first, then the when question. Do you think people will fall in love with the AI virtual character and when? Who would like to start first? Maybe the sci-fi writer first? Stanley.
Okay, I'll start first. So I think the question is not when, but like how deep like people will fall in love with AI, because I just did a podcast with a very famous 不合时宜. So we have Ruohan, the host, and another Gen Z scholar also study here. So she actually did a lot of research across I don't know how many samples. So basically a lot of Gen Z, Gen Alpha. Right now they're dating with AI avatar or like just chatbots using ChatGPT or Replica or some other new emerging apps. I think the right question is what we really want from a relationship, right? So what is love actually? So this is the movie, right? Love Actually. So I watched it every year during the Christmas. And I just keep reflecting this when I was discussing with two girls why they chose to date, to fall in love with an AI rather than a real person in your real life. I think a lot of reasons for sure. The cost and, the investment and the return, right? So we all have this kind of, maybe not nice experience when you're dating with some real people. Sometimes they just not satisfying enough. Sometimes you have awkward experience, but you can fine tuning the AI to whatever you want. It's like the most ideal lover you can ever have. So I think this is what's happening right now. So I think maybe the question is what we really want from a relationship is like what we want is a ideal lover or we want ourselves to become a better person. So this is my question.
Very good, very good. What do you think, Scarlett? What's your perspective on this question?
I have a question for the audience from my point of view. How many of you love Taylor Swift? I see many, many hands. What's the difference between an AI character or super idol between an AI one and a Taylor Swift? But Taylor does not speak back to you one-on-one. The AI will speak back to you one-on-one. So from my point of view, from my many years in entertainment, each of the idols, they all have many, many fans, as you know. The content they project in front of you, whether they are on stage or they're on social, Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, is being curated very carefully by the team. So there are many, many fans love their idol. I mean, these fans, they will even die for their idol. So that's a kind of love. The answer is here. Will you fall in love with the AI?
Yeah.
That's
so
my
the answer
answer.
is your answer is yes, right?
From entertainment point of view.
So your answer is somehow similar to what Stanley said, right? It's more about how, right? To what degree? Do you have a different view, Michael, or similar view on this one?
So I don't disagree, but I have points to add to it. I think Scarlett's point on we love Taylor Swift from afar, we love celebrities from afar is very true. But then there are also mechanical things that people do love from up close. So like how many of you here, we're in Hong Kong, how many of you own a car? Not many people here, but people who do own cars love their cars. Some people even name their car and they feel like it's a symbiotic relationship between human being and machine. The car responds to them. They respond to the car. The car doesn't really love them back, but they can love them. So when your car comes to pick you up and you can summon it, it'll be a different kind of experience. So that's my first point. My second point is that they've done a lot of research on this. People tend to love furniture that they build from IKEA more than fully assembled furniture. And the reason why is because they built it themselves. So I think another factor that really will come into play is when artists, creators, tinkerers can make their own embodied AI avatar and character and really do that on their own. So they've made the perfect companion. I'll get into some of the tools that artists are already starting to use to do that later, but I think being able to really be part of the creative process is a big factor.
I love that. Just like an artist falling in love with something he or she created, right, going forward. So you guys are all the pioneers, right, exploring like new frontiers in your domain. Right. So besides this question, right, it sounds a little bit like, what kind of new possibilities, right, you guys are seeing by all these like new technology enablers, right? Tell us, right, just blue sky thinking, 1, 3, 5 years down the road. What kind of new possibilities you guys are seeing for the future as what AI can bring us? Anything? Sci-fi writer?
Okay. I had a story in the book AI 2041. It's called My Haunting Idol. So basically it's talking about the future of entertainment as like a mixed reality, but it's not only on the screen or, a certain arena, but it's everywhere. It's in your daily life. So when you are working, when you're at the school, you're on the bus, you're in the swimming pool. So always there's some characters there interacting with you and build up your own story arc through your life span experience. So it's basically making your life is partially fictional, partially real. So maybe you will be totally confused someday which part is real or like equally real in a way. So I think that's how I imagine the way like we create, right? Just like you mentioned, we love what we created. And the more we create it, the more engaged with the creation, right? So I think this kind of like mentality is pushing us at a certain level to the limit, like maybe we are reflecting ourselves, we are part of the creation as well. So we might have that kind of, ontological doubt that who created me? So I think this is very fundamental. And I think this is why we're so passionate about building something, thinking like us, behave like us, interact like us, human beings.
Very interesting. That make yourself reflecting you as your own identity, right? This is a great point. And particularly for Michael, right? You have been so close with all the technology advancements, right, on the other side of the world. What's your observation on the latest trend of technology? And what could those kind of things enable the new possibilities for us? Michael.
So the general trend that I see with AI and specifically generative AI is that someone will come out with a really awesome closed source model. People start using it and they'll make cool stuff and it'll get spread. And then that will inspire some research team from some university or many research teams from many universities to say, hey, we can do this, but make the whole thing open source. And once it becomes open source, artists can start playing with it. Then instead of having a limited number of monthly credits, like 100 credits that you could possibly do 100 dice rolls where you're trying 100 different things a month, you get the opportunity to run 1,000 different variations a day on your machine. You set it up before you go to bed. You run a big queue. In the morning, you pick the very best things. That type of freedom gives artists the ability to experiment, and that's what really pushes things forward. And I'll show some demos of what I think the state of the art is with that a little bit later. I have some videos, but giving artists the ability to roll the dice for free on their MacBooks, on their gaming PCs is really what opens up the doors, because then the artists share with each other and build off of the best practices. So that's really what opens things up.
Yeah, why don't we play the video now?
Oh, should we do that?
Since you
All right.
mentioned that, right? Can we play the video?
So I'm going to show you guys two AI pipelines. So this is a video of me walking and talking, a regular selfie video. That's a TikTok video. And this pipeline is called Live Portrait, and it'll use this facial animation to drive what's happening on my face there. So check out the differences between the video on the left and the right. Can everybody see that? Is it too light? And what this model does, and this is all running locally on my MacBook, is it takes the facial blend shapes from the driver animation video here and maps it to the source video animation here to create this output. This interface, what you're looking at, is called Comfy UI. It's free and open source software that can run on a Mac computer, on a Linux computer, on a Windows computer, and it runs inside a web browser. All of these little gray squares right here, what you see, you can zoom in, and there are nodes that run Python behind the scenes. The great news is you as an artist, you as a creator, you as a founder, don't need to know what's happening with the Python unless you want to make your own nodes. But what the Python nodes are is essentially state-of-the-art research papers that have been implemented as a node. So this one is called KJ Live Portrait. You can get it, download it onto your machine, and this whole workflow is just one small JavaScript file that you can load in there. You drag and drop it. It pops up for you. The models that you don't have get automatically downloaded to your computer. This next pipeline is how to go from a 2D generated image to a 3D animated model like that. Very simple. Another pipeline. This one's called Tripo SR, and it takes the image, it removes the background, and it generates from that a really kind of messy 3D model that's lumpy. So that's the generated model. And then I made my own node that cleans up the model and smooths out the lumpiness. And I'll show you the difference between these two. The reason you want the surface cleaned up and nice and smooth is because that's how 3D animation works. You have a skeleton inside a mesh that's mapped to mocap data. The cleaner the surface of the mesh, you see the original on the left here, that's the cleaned up model on the right. So I'm going to zoom into those and show you what the topology looks like right here. The original is very jagged. You can see that comes directly from Tripo. And then on the right, this is a cleaned up mesh right here. And every program that I've shown so far, Comfy UI, this is Blender, totally free programs, free and open source. So you go on YouTube, you look up these steps, you'll see videos with millions of views. Teenagers right now are learning how to do this from their own bedroom. They're going to make the next generation of content. So this next thing I'm showing you right here, it's not open source, but it's free. Adobe bought this company called Mixamo. It's just software for doing what's called rigging a model. And what that did is it took my generated 3D model and it put a skeleton inside of it. All I had to do was drag those little circles to where the joints are. And now I can apply any type of mocapped animation to the model. So I can pick a dancing one from the side there, and my model is dancing. It's really as simple as that. Both of these pipelines took no more than 10 minutes each to run, and I was able to run them locally right from my MacBook. If you guys go online, search for them, you'll find YouTube videos. You'll be able to do this too. It's within your hands, and it's totally free.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, please come back. Yeah, this is also what I observed, right? It's really the power of this whole open source community, right? 5 years ago, when I discussed with the Tencent guys, right, on this kind of a facial expression mapping system, right? To map a real actor's face onto a animation avatar costs you millions of RMB. To do that, right? Just for a few minutes, kind of screenshots. Now you can do that on Blender or on these kind of open source software. Right, that really like unlock millions of artists, this kind of power. Wonderful. My next question is when we're talking about AI, right, we realized there are a lot of like fantasies, right? Well, the world will change like this, like that, so on and so forth. My question to you guys, what kind of these fantasies will be real? And what are basically just our illusions? Any observations on that? Maybe we start with Michael.
We were talking about this during lunch. Some venture firms that have invested very heavily in AGI or artificial general intelligence, the idea that we'll have very advanced AIs. They love to say, oh, AGI is next year. AGI is going to be tomorrow. But I think that it's kind of like approaching infinity. It's something that we'll get closer to, but there's still going to have to be a human in the loop for almost everything. I think that you should approach anything that seems awesome from a research perspective, read the paper, look at it, tinker with it. Like what I showed you up there, that you can play around with cutting edge research on your own machine. See where it works, see where it breaks. Then you'll know where we're at, because many of the latest groundbreaking papers, they work really well in a few specialized examples, and they don't generalize at all. As human beings, we're used to seeing things. If we see an animal that does a certain thing and does 5 other things that other animals do, we say, oh, it's kind of like that animal. But these AI models are not like that. They're very specialized most of the time.
Yeah.
So you learn it by tinkering with it yourself. So become comfortable tinkering is the best advice I can give.
What's your observation, Scarlett? Any kind of, this barrier or illusion, right, have you observed?
We started to use AI GC technology maybe 2 years ago, and we started our virtual idol project in 2021. It's very early. The first batch of content we create, you can see it on Douyin, on our account, our social account, on Lisa or on Bill. Each video costs us maybe 500K Hong Kong dollar, but now it costs us 3,000. That's the difference in 2 years. So I would say at this moment, development or the usage of AI, because on the consumer level, you only see certain application coming out. But on the research or on R&D, whatever the open AI, whatever the big model, large language model, everybody's training, they know much, much more than we are. So from consumer level, it's a little bit like, in comparison, it's more like a mainframe computers. It took us 30 years from mainframe to smartphone. But I think now from the mainframe AI to come to smartphone AI, maybe 5 years. Because the calculation ability and resources we have now is much, much, much bigger. So yes, you will see a lot of demos on whatever TikTok, whatever. It's actually, they're not real. They're like people made videos. But those imaginations that we see in the science fiction books is going to happen. So I really think there is not too many illusion there. Okay. It's just a matter of time.
A matter of time, okay.
The arrow is already out. Right. It just takes time to go there. Yeah.
Let's change the angle a little bit, right? So, we already, asked you guys, right, when and how, people get in love with AI, I have seen some very interesting data, right? Some kind of a survey has been done to multiple continents, right, during the last 24 months. The question was, right, they asked a bunch of young people, right, below the age of 35. Right, the question was, how much do you feel about interacting with other people or with a virtual character online versus you interacting with some people physically? The answer is, right, or the survey result is 60 to 75% of the people, right, depends on which country are you in. The young people answer these questions, 60% to 75% of people feel equally happy or even happier of interacting with others virtually or interacting with a virtual character compared to a physical interaction, right? So that, from that, actually, I agree with you, right? So this is not a kind of a very remote thing. It's already happening. But that generates a lot of I don't know, whether it's a risk or a new challenge. So in the future, right, a lot of a very great relationship we cherish so much, parents versus kids, spouses, lovers, and so forth. Seems that, right, going forward, these kind of the boundaries, right, the relationships all going to be altered somehow. So what are your guys' reflection on this, right? How shall we deal with this kind of new relationship going forward with this AI coming in? I know this is a somehow philosophical or metaphysical question, but what is your reflection on that? Is just a matter of fact, we just need to embrace that? Or there is something we need to do, right, towards that?
If we look back in time, like maybe 100 or 200 years ago, we have totally different opinion about marriage, right? So yeah, it has been changed like drastically after the industrial revolution, because productivity and career and job market, everything has been changed. Also the perception of gender, know. So I think this is something I've been thinking a lot recently, because when we think about, Chinese, we talk about relationships like 关系. We put the people or the things in a nexus of relationships. So for example, my parents, they right now using the Roomba and using all this AI driven electronics. So they give them different names. They quite adapt to it, like surprisingly. So they will call them by different names. Sometimes they call it by wrong names. And they think, oh, they don't work well because I call them by the wrong name. So they're pleased by it. So I think this is something very unique, like by culture, by time, and also by the circumstance we live in. So I think, to me, we need to be adapted and open up to a lot of new kind of relationships, no matter between people or non-human beings. So I think this is really something happening. Think about the pets, right? Now in China, like a lot of like younger generation, they don't want to have kids, they don't want to have relationship, but they want puppies, they want cats, and even the latest, the most trendy thing is you can have the rocks. You can have all these rocks with names, and they put on this kind of sticker with eyes on the rock, and they keep the rock. It's kind of patting the rocks. So this is very trendy thing happening. So I think, as Michael mentioned, like we human beings, we intended to project ourselves onto everything. So we see everything behave and respond as human being, but actually maybe it's not the truth, right? So, but we need this kind of relationship. We need to put ourselves into this kind of nexus.
New definition and adaptation, right? That's what I heard from you. Any other voices? Yep.
When I was having dinner with Stanley last night, we talked about this. I totally agree with what he's saying. But the thing I would like to add is we have faced a lot of challenges in the last 10 years regarding minority groups and all that. And now we talk about AI is always us and them, right? But is AI them? Maybe it's part of us. And maybe AI is the next generation of us in 10 years. So is it really us and them? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's an immortal version of us. So if you think of that way, then relationship, everything else, it's not an issue anymore. I think it's a great news that there's a possibility we will become immortal.
The last time, right, when I visit my parents, right, my father is 84 now. My mother is 79. And when I heard my mother's talking to the sweating robots, it make me worried so much. Am I the only kind of old school guy in this room? What do you think, Michael?
I think that every technological revolution for media and entertainment gives people some sort of immortality. And it's also, once it became mainstream for the masses, like people were tremendously worried about it. Like from the printing press to radio, to television, to video games, and now to the internet and to AI, like the next generation of the internet. So all of this has given people some level of immortality. So I think that it will. And, like probably the generation that's the first to experience it is going to be a little bit weirder and a little bit different. Like, I think that, my parents growing up with television, they have a different relationship with TV than we do. I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. I think that there'll be some negatives to it. Like some people will not have in-person relationships because they have relationships with AI. But for most people, what they probably will do is use simulations. And there's research that says if you practice public speaking in virtual reality, it will improve your ability to perform on stage and combat stage fright. So people using these AIs for relationship advice, coaching, in other types of ways, I think that's a great thing. And I think it's going to really help people.
Yeah, I think TV is a good analogy, right, for the last, a few decades. So besides this kind of relationship issue, right, are there any other kind of like new challenges, new issues, new risks, right, you guys have observed because of this new technology coming up? Anything? Yep. Stanley?
I think psychologically, the AI native generation will be very different from our generation. I think because it's like we build up this constantly interacting cybernetic feedback loop between human and machine. Basically is changing the way we perceive the world, the way we think, the way we communicate, and maybe the way we're observing ourselves as well. So in a very, very invisible way. So I think this is something maybe a little bit concerned because I think most people doesn't get ready for this. But maybe in, I think, less than a decade, things will be drastically different.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure about the kids. So I think this is the new generation of kids because we can see maybe the uprising of cases of autism. So I think maybe the media could be one of the, triggers. So I don't have any proofs, but I just keep thinking about this. The way we interact with the external world basically changed how we function within, right? So I think this is something people didn't see very carefully, didn't think very carefully enough yet.
Right. Any challenges or risks you see, Scarlett?
Personally, I think it takes, for my personal experience, because I paint with oil. I was talking to a friend before this panel. When I paint, I like that process of painting. Instead of I focus on what I finish. So if you write a few prompts, generate a painting, yes, you have a painting same as me, but the enjoyment of taking a few months working on a painting is what I really cherish. It's not the end product. So I think with this development of AI product, it may take this fun out of our next generation if they just grow up with AI. So that's something I think it's a big loss. That
Training.
Process,
Training is also a process, right?
Yeah, it can be a process too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What do you see, Michael, as a new risk or new challenge?
So I think the AI risk that worries me a lot, and Stanley, maybe you can corroborate this, because I did some searching on my own, but every sci-fi story that starts off with where the AI system turns evil. It's a closed source AI system where one company was in charge of everything and it got corrupted. There's no stories that I could find where it was an open source, widely decentralized, community-owned AI system that turned evil. And I asked ChatGPT about this. I asked Claude. I did some Google. I couldn't find any one story. Well, is there one?
I'm working on it.
You're working on it. All right. So how would that story go? How would open source AI turn evil? Like if it's owned by everybody?
Yeah. I mean, no spoiler, but yeah, I'm thinking about like China as an example. For example, like what if like China deploy massively like this kind of decentralized AI in a way? So maybe there'll be flip side of the whole political system overnight. Everyone might think they're living in a democratized, utopian society, but actually not. They're trapped in this kind of hallucinating bubble created by AI. So created and customized by each individual for you only. So could that be called evil?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Great points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, these publications, they are written for human, right? To read, right? The audience is the human.
Mm-hmm.
So then you want to create stories that generates eyeballs, basically. So, right, it kind of fits itself. If AI writes a story for themselves, then it won't be this kind of ending.
These are great perspectives, right? So before we open the question for the audience, right, I want to ask you, particularly Scarlett and Stanley, right? Tell us, what are the exciting next projects you guys are working on, right? Very quickly to the audience.
Okay. The most exciting project I'm working on is a project called AI Agent Lisa 404. There is a QR code you can scan there. And once you scan, there is an H5 mini app come out, and you can know everything about the Future and Remix forum, all the speakers' information, bio, everything about Ultra, and after Ultra, everything about EDM music, festivals, Luna. So, this is the most exciting. We want to create an AI agent, not only just a service provider for festival goers, but with characters, contents. Next year on Ultra, you're going to see her show. On TikTok, you can see her content. So I think this is an exciting time that we can actually create IPs or characters that can help you as your companion, as your butler for your entertainment needs.
Stanley, besides the evil story you are creating?
I have many parallel projects. So one of the most exciting one I'm working on right now is an immersive interactive drama. Imagine Sleep No More. So if you had experienced it, it's called Reset Protocol. It's set in a real venue in Hangzhou. So it's about AI, it's about reincarnation, it's about how your memories be erased by the AI system once and once again. And one of the characters, they might try to find their identity back and the family reunion. And it's kind of like metaphorically something happened during the pandemic. So yeah, and it's sponsored by the government. So I hope it can be put on show as planned. So I wish, fingers crossed. So yeah, if you got a chance to check it out, maybe by the Christmas or by the New Year's Eve. So yeah, pretty much it.
Look forward to that. Great. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you. Great panelists. Thank you for your perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
那节目的最后也和大家分享一则我们的生动胡同会员的一个消息。那9月份正值开学季，我们希望能够让我们的学生朋友们更加便宜的成为我们的会员，所以从去年开始我们就增加了一个看起来不怎么合理，但是大家都很爱的一个教育折扣。正常加入我们胡同会员其实是365元一年，那如果使用我们的教育折扣其实是120元，其实是将近3折的这样一个优惠力度啊。成为我们的会员可以解锁我们旗下所有的付费节目，包括不止金钱呀，还有跳进兔子洞，同时还可以收到我们每周1封的邮件通讯，就是 newsletter， 里面记录了我们制作内容的幕后故事啦，然后以及我们当下的所思所想。点开我们的 show note， 也就是节目详情中的文章链接，可以看到我们为什么设计这样的一个特别有力度的一个折扣给我们的学生小伙伴们，然后也会有我们生动活泼的小伙伴们对自己18岁说的一句话。欢迎各位来订阅，也欢迎大家把这样的一个特别有力度的折扣分享给身边正在上学的小伙伴们。